Luffy has finally broken into the caliber of the greatest pirates and has actually even surpassed most of the greatest pirates in the story at this point. Luffy's legend is definitely not reflected accurately in his bounty, and for the level he has attained and the achievements he holds under his belt compared to what he's worth, it's very evident. Luffy, as far as the world is concerned, has only been active as a pirate for a year because he took a 2-year hiatus during the time skip where he made no waves. As far as the world is concerned, Luffy tore the seas up in his initial journey, defeating Crocodile, raiding the world government stronghold Enies Lobby, and defeating CP9 with his crew, recruiting the demon child Nico Robin and destroying Thriller Bark, beating Moria, who was seen as a former rival to Kaido, going to Sabaody and attacking a celestial dragon, facing an admiral and a warlord, then getting his crew destroyed, breaking into Impel Down and raiding it, being the second person to successfully break out of Impel Down, with the first being a rival to the king of the pirates, then going to Marineford and making waves, standing side by side with Whitebeard and being seen as an ally to him, as Whitebeard essentially tells the entire battlefield on his side to back up Luffy, being revealed to be the son of Dragon and showing a quality no one else possesses in Conqueror's Haki, leaving Marineford, then going back to Marineford basically a week later with the Dark King Silver's Rayleigh and former warlord of the sea Jinbei, and walking past armed marines to pay his respects to the death of Ace, disappearing, then coming back with a bang by defeating Doflamingo, then going to Whole Cake Island and humiliating Big Mom by completely crashing her wedding and defeating 2 of her top officers, being seen as a contender for the title of Emperor going into Wano, coming out of Wano being considered the man who defeated Kaido, getting to Egghead, and then taking credit for the death of Vegapunk. Luffy's fleet totals 5,600, which is by no means small. His territories would consist of Fishman Island publicly and Wano privately, and he has essentially 5 nations backing him as far as an army is concerned, and his right-hand man is considered a contender for the world's greatest swordsman globally. He is now officially recognized as an emperor, but his reputation surpasses that of any emperor currently outside of Blackbeard, with him possibly being seen as even more notorious than Shanks in the world's eyes, as Shanks takes a much more chill approach as far as the world is concerned. Luffy would be considered a historic monster of a pirate and is definitely one of the greatest not only in his era, but in all of history. Hancock is on the list simply because of how widespread she is notoriety-wise. While she may not have the same terrifying swing that most great pirates do, her title of the most beautiful woman and continuing the legacy of the Kuja pirates definitely warrants her being considered one of the greatest pirates. The reason I have Hancock up here and not every Empress of Kuja is because everyone knows Hancock. Her swing is either equal to or greater than Shakky, and the only reason Hancock hasn't been stated to have people setting out to sea simply just to see her is because the Great Pirate era is also going on. You put Hancock in Rox's era and she would fill the exact same spot Shakky did, with her fame being known by absolutely everyone. Her strength is also noted as well because she's one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and depending on what was recorded on Amazon Lily, the world may see her as capable of fending off both Blackbeard and Kobe if Rayleigh wasn't mentioned. Hancock is most certainly one of the greats and would be considered a legendary pirate simply off of her beauty. Going to the opposite of beauty now is Blackbeard. I don't even have to tell you why Blackbeard would be considered one of the greats. His showing on Marineford essentially switching the entire focus of the war from Whitebeard to himself, terrorizing the world by displaying the ability to use 2 devil fruits, one of which is the same fruit that terrorized the world previously in Whitebeard's hands, having collected the most terrifying pirates and the most terrifying level of Impel Down on top of its vice warden, then obliterating the Whitebeard remnants including Marco, going to Pirate Island and obliterating Wang Ji alongside Law and Kobe, and taking control of an island of pirates, recruiting a former admiral and hunting devil fruit users all over the new world for a year, then crushing one of the supernova who is credited for defeating Big Mom, would all cause Blackbeard to absolutely terrify the world. Blackbeard is quite possibly one of the most terrifying pirates in the known history of One Piece because he's not only strong but actively making moves and terrorizing people. Allied captains with him like Peachbeard are actually going around and pillaging in his name, which just makes him an even greater threat to the world. No one in the world doesn't know the name Blackbeard. He literally says it's his era on Marineford. The only reason why he doesn't have the largest bounty of the emperors is because he doesn't have as much longevity as they do. His territories are equal to that of Whitebeard minus Fishman Island and maybe a handful of others, and his fleet should be very sizable now, including all of the pirates on Pirate Island. Blackbeard is definitely ahead of the realm of great pirates, and it will only continue to grow by the time the series ends. Just like with Hancock, Shakky is up here because of her beauty. Now you could say the fact that she isn't still popular diminishes our argument, but it all depends on if people know that both Shackys are the same Shakky. After God Valley, Shakky more than likely just takes a backseat completely, and depending on the news coverage outside of Garb defeating the Rocks pirates, the entire world might just think that Shakky up and disappeared off the face of the earth one day. Regardless though, Shakky's level of pull on the entire world literally rivaled Roger's, as she essentially started the great age of Gooners with droves of pirates setting sail for even a chance at seeing seeing Shakky. She was basically 10 times more popular than Gloriosa, who was also an extreme beauty, I argue even more beautiful than Shakky was at the time, but hey, and her disappearing literally crippled the world's economy for weeks. Not even crippled, she basically killed it. That's how much people loved her. I'm sorry, but although Hancock may be just as beautiful feat-wise, I don't think anyone outside of Roger and Whitebeard has shown swing even remotely close to this. As a matter of fact, I think only Roger has even come close to this level of pull, and that's simply because he started the Great Pirate Era. Shakky would have ended her career on a historic high because she didn't have to pass her succession off to another empress while still being active. She simply just disappeared and someone else had to fill the gap, meaning people would always long for Shakky until she simply just faded into memory after 40 years. I hate that I have to put him up here, but Buggy's greatness feats do go insane when you realize just how legendary the world considers Mihawk to be. Mihawk is a myth to most characters outside the New World who aren't already seasoned pirates themselves. No one stands a chance against him, and in his younger days, his duels with the future Emperor Shanks sent shockwaves across the Grand Line influence-wise. An essentially unknown pirate comes out of Impel Down with a ship full of prisoners calling him Lord, and Whitebeard himself allies with him in public. At the end of the war, we see him banter with red-haired Shanks without even the slightest hint of retaliation. That man becomes a warlord of the sea, starting a delivery service, making a decent amount of money to the point where he can hire the services of 5 giants. The only people in the world who have giants publicly working for them are the Navy at this point, just to put into perspective how crazy that is to someone in the world. I don't think people know that Hyrodin is the Prince of Elbaf, so I'll let that go, but the fact that 5 giants, not just 5 random giants, but people claiming to take up the mantle of the new giant pirates, work under Buggy by the time he's a warlord is just crazy. That man then survives the warlord abolishment when someone like Weevil, who is seen as powerful as a young Whitebeard by even admirals, so imagine how strong the rest of the world thinks he is, gets captured, and right after that, the world's strongest and most renowned swordsman, who is seen on equal standing to red-haired Shanks power-wise, is then seen as a subordinate alongside Crocodile, who is more than likely doing his own deeds in the New World to get his bounty close to that of a right-hand man of an emperor, or past it depending on if he got a bounty increase from Cross Guild. Crocodile's bounty was above Luffy's when he was being considered as a candidate for emperor, and just shy of Blackbeard's first emperor bounty, and that man, plus the world's strongest swordsman, join under Buggy while the world already considers him a contemporary to Shanks and Whitebeard at the start of his major active career. Couple all of that with the fact that the world might even know that Buggy used to sail with Roger and Shanks because Buggy's goons won't shut up about how great he is, you'd have another character whose bounty should be way higher based off what the world thinks he does. Literally the only thing holding the new emperors back from blowing the old ones out of the water bounty wise is simply the fact that they haven't been doing it all as long. Buggy, Blackbeard, and Luffy individually blow Kaido and Big Mom out of the water perception wise, and Buggy is most certainly considered one of the greatest pirates in history. Now I'm gonna go into the pirates who aren't great based off what the world knows, but great based off what we know. The first of which is Joyboy. Joyboy again is self-explanatory. He was literally the first pirate, and that's not even an obscure thing. Like, you can literally search deep enough into history to know Joyboy was the first pirate. This is like knowing the first person who ever created a fire or the first person to conquer someone else's territory. Joyboy being known as the first pirate, and pirates essentially being the most popular job occupation with a literal 800-year run off of what Joyboy started alone, makes him one of the greats even if he doesn't have most of his history revealed. Not even to mention the fact that outside of all the obscure stuff, he and Luffy are basically 1 for 1 as far as territories and army go, with Joyboy being vastly superior in that aspect. Not even going into his strength level, because he was so strong during his heyday that someone like Emu thought they needed 19 other allies to take him down, which, mind you, is the entire reason the world government got created, which essentially means that Joyboy is not only the originator for pirates, but also technically the originator of the Navy and world government too. Then add to the fact that Roger wishes he was born in Joyboy's era, which speaks to how great Joyboy as a man was, as Roger, who has essentially seen it all, wishes he could have been born in that time specifically. While he may have had most of his history erased, that doesn't make him any less of a great pirate narratively, as I would only speak further to how great the legend of Joyboy would be if it was allowed to be spread. Another legend that had their history scrubbed is Davy Jones. Jones might actually be considered greater than Joyboy was because Jones did what Joyboy couldn't in becoming king of the world and essentially beating the world government. Jones, by being considered a pirate, would have lived and became king after Joyboy and the Void Century War, meaning Jones essentially defeated the world government and became king himself. He is the originator of the Davy backfight, which has been spread to the far corners of the world as a test of pirate honor, with every pirate following along. He's had myths surrounding him for who knows how long, and if he's anything like the real world Davy Jones, he certainly has had his fair share of clout. The fact that he was king of the world speaks volume to his greatness because he rose to the top in an era after the Void Century with the world government active. He more than likely originated the Davy back as a way to get stronger allies, and that's more than likely part of his playbook, as both Xebec and Blackbeard do the same thing for the most part, which is taking the strongest figures possible in their era as allies. Jones was more than likely an open ruler and not a shadow one, simply based off the way that Rox and Blackbeard are, meaning his name literally dominated the entire world as king until he was overthrown. The last member of the Davy clan on the list is obviously Xebec, someone who was considered the top dog in his era when Roger was active and sailed the entire known sea, as Roger found Lodestar the year before God Valley, would make Xebec a no-brainer as far as one of the greatest pirates of all time. He literally subjugated every great pirate in his era minus Roger, and was literally terrorizing the world. He essentially fostered the new legends that would then rise up in Roger's era, and even inspired Loki, who is now going to be integral to the endgame narrative. Even discarding what Loki did, Xebec was still never surpassed even by the new legends he fostered, Whitebeard included. Sengoku, who knows how terrifying Whitebeard is and was essentially cowering in fear every time the man made a move, had only ever heard of Xebec through newspapers basically, as we don't even know if they've ever fought, and he would consider Xebec to be Roger's greatest foe ever, which would include Whitebeard. It's either whatever he heard from Garp or whatever he heard from the news at the time places Xebec at his peak above Whitebeard at his peak, and that would include whatever Whitebeard did on Marineford and his legend growing from dying on his feet. He basically had it all: wealth through acquiring Pirate Island and pillaging constantly, fame as it was his era before Roger's, and power as he was the strongest in his era outside of Emu. If there was a title of King of the Pirates to be given, Xebec most certainly would have earned it, as he was essentially the king of every pirate in his era minus Roger. Garp taking credit for defeating Rox, as the Rox pirates are still active after Xebec's defeat, would lead him to be seen as the greatest hero in Navy history basically, and boost his legend close to the level he would attain by the end of his career. Rox had no equal in his era for the most part, as he and Roger were never competing the same way that Roger was competing with others in his era. Rox gives us the clearest example of how exactly it is that a legend of his caliber gets erased from history, and it's due to specific methodical targeting and not having allies who are able to spread your name and will after you pass. Xebec being erased from history is not a knock on his greatness, but a testament to it, as Emu did everything in his power to ensure someone with Xebec and Davy Jones' ideology would never rise up again, as both could have come very close to crushing his reign permanently. This is one I don't have as much proof on and is mainly in the realm of theory, but Vander Decken I is an old historical pirate that has been given mythical status with his terrifying legend of haunting the sea floor being spread. I give pirates who have a legend correlated with their name a boost, as your name is living on through history even if I don't know what exactly it is that you personally have done. Him wanting Poseidon and knowing about the ancient weapons implies he was a pirate shortly after the creation of the world government, as the Poseidon during Joyboy's time was more than likely still alive after the Void Century War to pass down his promise to her future successors. Decken might have either been a rival or inspirer to Davy Jones, as they both share similar legends of haunting the seafloor, or maybe they're just different names for the same person. Either way, Vander Decken I's folktale warrants him being considered one of the greatest pirates, as there are almost no pirates who have legends living on beyond their death that weren't legendary when they were alive. The reason Rayleigh's on this list, even though he isn't a captain, is because outside of Roger, Rayleigh is the only other Roger pirate documented in history. The Strahts in their childhood know the Dark King Rayleigh, right hand of the Pirate King, but didn't know Scopper Gabon. Rayleigh would be considered legendary in a different sense, because even while not being active for the entire Great Pirate era, his name is still being recognized and his legend proliferated, which is a different level of greatness than most great pirates receive. I guarantee no one spoke about Shakky after he got defeated, and no one is going to be talking about Big Mom or Kaido long after they're gone, because their achievements, while great, are not that otherworldly as far as we know, as those two just stayed in their territory almost their entire career. Rayleigh definitely deserves to be considered one of the greatest pirates, as even though he wasn't the captain, his name still stands close to his captain even in inactivity. Roger is obviously up here. The reason I saved him to the end of the video is because I wanted the less obvious parts to be at the start, so you all would get the new info first, as we all know why Roger is on the list of the greatest pirates. He literally started the Great Pirate Era. His name has touched every corner of the world. There isn't a single person alive who doesn't know who Roger is, and seeing as Roger's name was never erased from history and is probably going to grow and grow into a mythical legend like Davy Jones and Vander Decken did, his exploits might end up becoming folk tales pretty soon. The old Roger legend that we have in the real world is probably going to be attributed to Roger in the future of the story, as people saw Roger as a demon while he was alive, and he's talked about like one even after his death. Whitebeard again is also self-explanatory. I don't know if it's in the manga, but in the anime, kids were literally singing about Whitebeard being a demon in the time leading up to Marineford on some random island while Whitebeard is still alive. I don't know who made up a song about Whitebeard and had it spread to kids, unless these kids just made up a song about Whitebeard from stuff they've heard, but that is the next level of greatness and recognition. The entire world basically stood still when they found out the Navy captured one of Whitebeard's men, and them literally live streaming Marineford because of both Roger and Whitebeard is a testament to both of their legends. It's impossible to have Roger and not have Whitebeard. Whitebeard. Even in the ultimate chapter when giving out the Yonko bounties, you see the clear separation between Roger and Whitebeard and the other great pirates. The man who stood shoulder to shoulder with the Pirate King despite not even doing anything crazy in his life to deserve it. His name alone protected Fishman Island from having their entire race enslaved when Marijo was literally right above them, and every pirate has to go through Fishman Island to do it. I don't give Big Mom that kind of glaze because she still protected Fishman Island for a fee, and Jinbei was still on Fishman Island for the most part to protect it, while the Great Pirate Era was 23 years stale. Whitebeard did it, and he did it at the start of the height of the Great Pirate Era, and Jinbei didn't have to stay on Fishman Island to protect it the entire time. His name alone was enough to have peace, and everyone on Fishman Island attributes that to Whitebeard. There are characters who you guys probably wanted to see on this list that aren't: Shakky, Big Mom, Kaido, Wang Ji, Captain John, Shanks, and maybe even Mihawk, but the reason those characters aren't on the list and these ones are is because I don't see any of these characters becoming or being considered as legendary after their deaths. If Luffy were to die in Elbaf, I think he's done enough to be considered legendary, same with Blackbeard and Buggy. Shakky has done far greater in the eyes of the world than any of the ones above listed have. I could technically put Mihawk in the honorable mentions, but in all honesty, I don't see him being the same as Rayleigh, where he gets talked about as a legend alongside Buggy when he gets defeated, and if he goes out being defeated by Zoro and that being public knowledge, it's going to be a Kaido situation where one guy gets replaced by another guy. If your career ends on a loss and that loss is just someone replacing you, then your legend would suffer from that. But who do you guys think should be on the list, and what argument do you have for why the characters I didn't add should be up here? If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, and stay tuned in for more high quality One Piece content. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.